Hey guys, and welcome back to ToneQuest episode 10. This is your good friend GT, and today I'm bringing you another great preset for the incredible Mr. Nick Johnston. If you don't know about my series, basically what I'm doing is I'm creating free presets for you on the XFX using 100% stock cabs and amps so that you don't have to purchase anything. All you need to do is, in return, subscribe to my channel and provide me your feedback, and make sure you're connected with me so that I can keep creating these presets. These presets take time, and if you have used the XFX and you've tried these stock IRs, you know how difficult it is sometimes to create the tones that you want. I did a Nick Johnston preset earlier, I think it was episode 3. It was for the track Impossible Things, and this is another phenomenal track from the album Remarkably Human. So without further ado, let's dive right into the preset. I'm going to bring up the XFX and we're going to go through the preset in detail. Make sure you stick around till the end because I'll be sharing some helpful tips and tricks and how to use the preset as well. Cheers, and I'll see you right after this. Welcome back, folks. Let's dive deep into the preset. I've got the XFX2 and the X-Edit loaded in front of me, and before we jump into the preset, I just want to point out that the guitar I'm playing is a Fender Stratocaster American Deluxe. This has the standard N3 noiseless pickups, which we all know are not very hot to begin with. The strings that I've got on there are the Ernie Ball regular Slinkies. Fantastic strings. Go check them out if you haven't done so far. The guitar is tuned to half step down, which is the tuning that Nick Johnston plays on. With that said, the obvious disclaimer that this preset may not sound exactly the same on your gear, and you may have to tweak the preset to suit your gear and your style of playing as well. Another clarification, the preset has two scenes. Scene 1 is the regular lead tone for the track. However, I think for the main solo he uses more mids perhaps, but this is the tone which you can pretty much use throughout the main sections of the track. Scene 2 over here is a clean tone that I used on the track, which is the beginning part of the track. Now, From what I know and what I've heard, usually Nick Johnston rolls off the volume knob to get his cleans, and he's got pretty hot pickups going on his signature guitar. And the Friedman BE also is a great amp to do that. But since in my case I have the standard N3 noiseless pickups which are not that hot, I ended up losing quite a bit of sustain and meat from the tone. Hence I went ahead and created a separate clean tone as a bonus for you guys. You can obviously roll down the volume on the scene 1 and try it out on your gear. It might work well for you. Okay, let's go through the scenes one by one. Scene 1, as I said, is the main lead tone for the song, and this is how it sounds outside of the mix. I don't know about you guys, but that sounds great to my ears, and that is a great example of a single coil guitar through a distorted amp. Let's get into some details. I play this scene mostly on the neck pickup. I think Nick shifts to the bridge pickup for a couple of parts in the song, but mostly in the neck pickup as well. First up is a compressor. I mainly use the compressor in this case to cut some of the buzz and the fuzz which you'd probably get from a single coil, pickup going through such a high gain amp. Play around with the threshold here and it'll help you achieve more sustain or cut some sustain and cut more noise. The higher you go, the more sustain you will lose probably, but you will be able to cut more of the noise coming from the single and the hum coming from the single coil pickups. Up next is a FAS boost, which is my favorite boost pedal from the Axe-Fx, and I use it quite a lot to add sustain and more gain at times. The drive is 0 in this case, so it's not adding too much gain, but it's definitely adding more sustain for me. And I'm cutting out quite a bit of treble using the high cut over here and the levels around 10 o'clock as well. Next up is the amp, which is a Friedman's BE C45 model from the Axe-Fx. Now I believe BE stands for brown eye. You might ask, what does C45 stand for? Well, actually it is a switch on the actual amp which acts more like a treble boost, and I believe this model was missing from the Axe-Fx to earlier, and it was recently added with the Friedman 2018 model. You could achieve this effect if you don't have the C45 model on your Axe-Fx. You could achieve this using filter before the amp. Search the forums, there are plenty of tips how to do that. Settings wise, I think the settings are pretty basic over here. I've got fair amount of input drive. I've got the bass pretty low, the mids also low, and the trebles also slightly low. The presence is up high, and so is the depth. One thing I do want to point out is the master volume for this amp. Notice that I've got it quite low and I compensate for the level using the level knob over here. If you raise the master volume too much, I find it gets very flubby and unclear and really muddy. The cab is a stock cab. If you know my presets, I always use 100% stock IR so that you can download them and they should work right out of the box for you, and you don't have to buy any or purchase any IRs or download any IRs specifically. So in this case, it's a F073, which is a 4x12 USA Trad 57121. This is, I believe, from ML Audio. This is a Mesa traditional recto cabinet with 4 Celestion V30 speakers, I believe, and I've got a U87 condenser mic up there in front of it. Some high cut, and I've raised the level again to compensate for the level that I lost in the amp over there. Next up is a parametric EQ. This is where most of the action is happening. I'm scooping out a lot of mids here and adding quite a bit of highs. After that, another PEQ block. You may ask why 2 PEQ blocks. As most of my presets, and if you checked out my earlier presets as well, the final PEQ block that I usually add is a final touch up or a final tweak that I do to the tone. What I do is basically once I've got a basic tone going for me, I usually freeze the signal change behind the PEQ, and I tend not to touch things over there again. And I use this final PEQ block as a final touch to the preset, and as you can see, I'm cutting out a lot of highs over here and adding some low end as well. Use this PEQ block as a starting point for tweaking the preset in case you need to. After that, we've got an enhanced block which is switched off. It's going to be used in scene 2. The delay is nothing very fancy. It's a stereo tape. It's a 1/4 dot of a tempo, and the feedback's around 35% and the mix is around 10%. The final block is a reverb block, which is a large deep hall. I believe everything here is stock and the mix is pretty high. It's around 24%. All right, that's it for scene 1. Let's jump over to scene 2 quickly. This is the clean tone which I used for the first intro part of the song. Here's a handy tip. If you have used the XFX, you would know that across the scenes you can usually turn on or off the blocks, but the settings of the block pretty much get carried over. But since I needed separate settings for the same amp over here, I used the X and Y states to achieve this. So in scene 2, the amp is set to the X state, as you can see over here. And if I quickly jump to scene 1, you can see the amp is set to Y state. So you can use this kind of states to have two different settings of the same amp across, or the same block rather, across scene 1 and scene 2. And this also applies to the drive in this case. As you can see in scene 1, the drive is set to the Y state, and in the scene 2, it's set to the X state. Obviously, if you have more than two settings for the same amp, you cannot achieve this using this technique, but I'm sure there are other techniques to do that as well. Let's go into some of the things that are different in the scene. The drive is different. I believe I have some EQ going on over here. I'm scooping out a lot of those mids over here to get that crystal clear, clean sound. The amp, the input drive is very low. I've got it at almost 0 because I wanted that clean tone out of the amp. Again, as I said, if scene 1 works better for you by lowering the volume knob, do that, and you probably don't need to use scene 2, but this is a good clean tone for you to use. The bass is pretty high, mids and treble I don't think I touched much. The master volume has gone up in this case because obviously the drive is very low, and so has the level been compensated accordingly. I think rest of everything is same. I added an enhanced block there. This is used to widen the sound and give it kind of a stereo effect. You know what an enhanced block does, so I've used that. I've switched off the delay in this case because I don't want any repeats or any delays coming through. I mainly use the reverb in this case, and there's a chorus block as well with the rate almost as low as possible, and the mix is around 14% and the tone is like that. I don't think I touched much over here. I just changed the dimension mode to high. I always keep it as high. And the reverb is the same. One thing I like to call out about the scene before we wrap this up is specifically around the attack and dynamics. You see, when Nick plays his cleans, from what I understand, he usually keeps the pick attack quite subtle and quite soft. And I would recommend you to not dig into the strings too much in this case. If you do, you're bound to get some clipping happening, so you might need to tweak the preset to adjust that as well. That's it, folks. Hope you guys enjoy this kind of preset walkthroughs. Let me know your feedback in the comment section below as to what style you guys prefer. I started doing this from the last episode onwards and I really enjoy it, but let me know if it gets too much or I need to cut it short or I need to make it longer. But I do believe this is a better way of showcasing the preset rather than, putting screenshots at the end of the video. Also, I know a few of my friends here have the Nick Johnston series signature guitar. So in case you're tuned in and you have an XFX, I would love to hear how this preset sounds on your gear. Your feedback is very vital to me and has always been a driving force for me to create more and more presets. So keep the love flowing and keep the likes coming in, and make sure you're subscribed to the channel to support me. You know where the preset's going to be. It's going to be on Exchange, and you can find the link in the description box and in the comment section below. Make sure you go and try it. It's free and it always will be from my end. If you do try the preset and you like it, make sure you provide me some feedback, because that is all that I'm looking for. And until next time, keep rocking. Cheers. Bye-bye.